Here we go. I should stop talking about race and Latino Hispanic folks, but clearly I enjoy pain. This is going to be interesting. I hope I don't get myself into too much trouble or get a lot of harassment. Ándale, let's do this. While watching Legends of Tomorrow a few months ago, those are the two genders for me, Legends of Tomorrow and Lucifer. Yes, that is all I watch nowadays. Well, not all I watch, but the only shows that I love and bring me joy, the two genders. Anywho, while watching Legends of Tomorrow a few months ago, this scene happened.
It's your old friend Che. You think of Che Guevara? I never said I was Che.
This character is Behrad Tarazi, a character and actor of Middle Eastern descent. Kinda weird that a Middle Eastern person would be confused for a Latin person, right? If you're watching this and are Latin, does this confusion surprise you? I thought it was interesting that a mainstream network television show would have this moment of brownness. Are they saying all brown people look the same? Or that the show knows where collectively brownness comes from? Interesting either way. It got me thinking, well, rethinking about this idea of brownness. In America, and maybe other countries too, but I am an American and only we exist in the entire universe. We have white folks and everyone else. Again, the two genders. In the everyone else group, we have subsections of different colors. It's a weird sentence. And we are referred to as people of color collectively, as if white isn't a color, but we're not going to get into that in this video. Together, we have dived into what I call Anglo-Latino folks. Watch and learn all about that, link in the carcancha below. Also, if you've seen my video on Latin variety, you'll have observed how surprisingly white Latin folks are. Yet, we are categorized collectively as brown. Are we though? I know it sounds like I'm being a white supremacist or something like that, but I'm not. It's just important to come to terms with our collective colonized background. Also, as Latin Hispanics, we are pretty racist and colorist. The lighter you are, the better life turns out for you. Sorry, familia, but I have to call it out. Our brownness, and we are brown no matter how much I'm told Hispanic Latinos are white, was reduced to almost nothing. What was left? Whiteness, mestizo-ness, and some brownness. A lot of us would identify as mestizo, but in my mind, how mestizo can we really be after 500 years of mestizaje? It's unknown. We are the least historically documented people in history. So poorly documented that folks will yell at you about how racism against Latin Hispanics is not a thing because it's not documented. Just because it's not written down doesn't mean it didn't happen. But I digress. We can agree though, race and color is a really silly thing that is impossible to break down, isn't it? Today, I want to explore this idea of brownness. Latin folks are referred to as brown, and I have a lot of questions regarding that. We are going to see what it means to be brown, who would qualify as brown, and most controversially, where do Latin folks get their brownness? You think you know, but you really don't. Ready for some travesuras? Órale. Neta uno. What even is brownness? I don't know. Neta dos. Who is brown? Okay. I'm kidding, sort of. It's because this is hard to define, actually. You wouldn't think so because growing up in a racialized society, we'd be able to define the different racial groups we've been divided to. It's cut and dry, well defined. We know exactly who goes where and why. Spoilers? No, we don't. not entirely at least. To prove this, let's dive into this point. I've made this point before and I'll make it again here. If you weren't here watching a video from LatinXplanations Industries, you would probably have no idea what color I am. You wouldn't guess my name is Ruby Perez Ochoa, or that my family is from Mexico, or that English is my second language. I'm like that meme.
Nobody's gonna know. They're gonna know. How would they know?
I know I don't look white, but I know I don't look obviously ethnic either. Add to the fact that I don't fit most stereotypes about my ethnic group, and that confuses people even more about me being allegedly brown. My best guess is I would qualify as brown. I fall under the brown umbrella, but I know there are some folks who would disagree considering all the light skin, not obviously ethnic privilege I have. So that whole looking at someone and knowing what color they are is baloney. If we can't go by color, how can we define brownness? There doesn't seem to be a concise definition of brownness, or any other colorness for that matter. Urban Dictionary has the most accurate definition, I think. No one is exactly sure who brown people are. It has been used inconsistently throughout history to describe everyone from Italians in early U.S. immigration history, Malaysians, indigenous people in Canada, Australia, and the U.S., people of India, mixed South Africans, and Hispanics. This term is used more by some of these groups to describe themselves than it is used by others to describe them. My best assessment, brownness is something that you can identify as. Wait, does that mean that folks like Rachel Dolezal are right? You can just choose your ethnicity or color? I just wasted a lot of time making fun of Hilarious Baldwin, didn't I? Nah, that's one of my best videos and I'm super proud of that one. Check it out. In our white is the best, everything else is bad society, us people of color are expected to forego our ethnic backgrounds and assimilate into the dominant group. The concept of brownness is one that allows people to proudly claim their ethnic heritage, even if they don't know what it is or anything about it. There are some ethnic groups that work pretty hard to preserve tradition, language, and beliefs. I can't speak for all ethnic folks in the US, but for a large majority of Latin Hispanic kids, all we know about our background is what exists in memes and jokes about being Hispanic Latino. Brownness allows us to connect to some history and heritage that we know nothing about. In the year of our Lord 2021, we are now more than ever stepping away a little from white supremacy and celebrating our differences, even if only during certain monetarily beneficial festivals. Brownness is this umbrella term that allows folks to recognize and honor different cultural annals. It's difficult to be of color in a society that expects you to be fully 100% assimilated to the dominant culture while simultaneously being fully 100% stereotypically ethnic. I know my assessment for sure leaves you with more questions than answers. All of these ideas and concepts are general and can possibly never be concrete. Maybe in the next section, I might be able to clarify. Neta dos, who is brown? I hope we can agree that looking at someone and knowing what color they are is baloney. For most of us, Irish, Jewish, and Italians are white. For hardcore white supremacists, they are not white. Would those folks then be brown? What about people who look white but are not white? Colonized places like Latin America and Southern Asia have a lot of white-looking people, but they would not be categorized as white. One group would be considered brown and the other yellow? Talking about colors, no. That is another weird thing about color. The different colors we are based on observations from folks back a couple of centuries to justify why white people are superior and other folks are inferior. That is what white supremacy is, and that is what I hate. Not white people in general, as many folks in the comment section think I do. Old-timey racist racial categories are white, black, yellow, and red. Brown is a more recent term. The first folks to be categorized as brown were folks from Southeast Asia. Doesn't sound right, does it? Asia has the yellow man. Well, what about indigenous people here? They are the red man. Put a pin in that one. We'll get back to it in the next section. These terms come from a dude named Carl Linnaeus back in 1735. He was one of the first dudes to make the argument that race is a part of nature, so racial hierarchy is also a part of nature. Gross. An old-timey racist dude named Johann Friedrich Blumenach came up with the idea of brown to add to the original 4 racial categories in 1781. In 1795, these were the official scientific categories of race: Caucasian, Mongolian, Ethiopian, American, and Malay. The Malay category and people were the first official brown folks of the world. This included a lot of folks from across the globe: Malaysians, Indonesians, Polynesians, Middle Easterners, North Africans, Singaporeans, Filipinos, East Africans, Hindu people, and folks from Brunei. That is a wide range of folks who were/are categorized as brown. You'll notice that Latin folks are not included in this. Filipinos are included, and as comedian Joe Coy points out,
This is what I want everyone to know, man. We are the Mexicans of Asia.
but not actual Mexicans or Latin folks. It's fascinating to me that when we talk about brown peeps in the US, most folks think of Latin Hispanic gente. Most of us do not think about the original brown groups. Being brown is way more broad and nebulous than originally thought. Brownness is based on skin color, which is not the best indicator of ethnic diversity. Based on skin color alone, most Latin Hispanic folks would not be considered brown. And again, when we say brown people in the US, the group most of us automatically think of is Latin Hispanic people. The more you analyze, think about, break down race and color, the less it makes sense. Kinda odd. In the US, Hispanic Latinos are seen as brown, and for the sake of this video, let's say that's true. We are all brown. To prove that, the next step is to look at where this brownness comes from. Seems obvious, but is it? Neta 3. Where does Latin brownness come from? Spoilers, Latino Hispanic brownness does and doesn't come from where you think it does. Most of us think Latin Hispanic brownness comes from our indigenous native populations. Some of it does, for sure, but not all of it. Also, if all of it came from the indigenous folks, then we would be red and not brown. In the old-timey racist color categories, natives in the Americas were referred to as red. So those of us Latin Hispanic folks who have indigenous ancestry would fall under this red group category. About that. As we have gone through many times before, most Latin Hispanic folks do not have any indigenous origins. With the exceptions of Central America, Peru, and Ecuador, most of the indigenous communities were wiped off the face of the earth. And for those who are mestizo, family, like I said before, it's been 500 years. How mestizo can we really be at this point? But a lot of us look brown and exotic. Let's look at some examples of celebrity Latin Hispanics and see if that can illuminate this whole brown exotic look. The most famous Mexican indigenous actress is Yalitza Aparicio, very indigenous looking. The most famous Latina in the entire world is Jennifer Lopez. Has no clear indigenous features. The native folks of Puerto Rico, where Jenny is from, the Taíno, were completely wiped out. So Puerto Rico has no mestizaje happening, not indigenous mestizaje at least. After white, the largest racial population is black from North and West Africa. Okay. Another super famous Latina is Shakira. She looks fairly white. Being from Colombia, that makes sense. That country is mostly white. But Shakira has some brownness, which she gets from her father's Lebanese side. Alrighty. Moving on to another typical Latina, Salma Hayek. Salma has a mixed Spanish-Lebanese background. Okay. Last one, a dude, because Latin folks aren't just unbelievably gorgeous women. Actor Jaime Camil, who also looks like a typical Latino, right? Jaime is a mix of Spanish, Brazilian, Portuguese, Egyptian descent. Okay, with this small group of actors, is there something you guys are noticing? When Americans think about Latino folks and how Latin people look, the celebrities I named are the prototypical Latin look. A look mostly Afro-Latin people have rightly fought against. Those folks don't have any native Latin American heritage. Their heritage comes from Spain, the Middle East, and North Africa, except for Yalitza. She is indigenous and looks quite different. It's like in the Legends of Tomorrow. Persian, if I'm not mistaken. Behrad Tarazi is confused for Argentinian Che Guevara. The more exotic, sultry, sexy, fetishized Latin people's brownness comes from the Middle East and North Africa. I'm sure Edward Said and Orientalism are related here. But that is a topic for a different video. Even folks that have majority Spanish heritage, they are probably not completely white. If you remember your history, you'll know that the Iberian Peninsula was conquered by the Moors for a couple of centuries. The Moors changed language, traditions, and Spanish ethnicity. So folks like Antonio Banderas look more ethnic and exotic. He probably has that Moorish/Mediterranean heritage. Does that make Antonio a person of color? Probably not. It's very complicated when you are talking about folks from a colonizing country with a lot of privilege. More questions and answers. But no, I would not count him as brown. I am not an expert though. We are all on this journey together. Forgive me if I mess up. This idea that all Latin people are either native, Spanish, or mestizo is a major misnomer. We have the entire world represented in Latin America. Latinos, Afro-Latinos, Asian Latinos, Anglo-Latinos, Arab Latinos, everyone. So collectively, our brownness comes from a lot of places. I think that's why the term brown is such a non-specific, nebulous one. It has been redefined to give a lot of us who don't know where we belong a place where we do, hopefully without having to justify and prove our person of color status. I like that. A friendly, welcoming place for everybody. Unfortunately, that is not always how it works. Since folks feel the need to keep telling me that Hispanic Latinos do not experience racism and are in fact white, that's all news to me. As someone who has been harassed by white supremacists and told to stop taking things away from white people who actually deserve it, and who has experienced racism in my real life, sorry if I reject the idea that Latin Hispanic folks are white, actually. Most of us are brown. Only a certain kind of Hispanic fool thinks themselves white. Like I've said before, and I'll say it again, Latino Hispanics, you are not white. Stop being so racist and colorist. Conclusion. Together we are seeing that Latino Hispanics, we don't look the same. Collectively, we are seen as brown. Yeah? But we come in all colors and ethnicities. Brownness is a nice umbrella term we can use as shorthand to point out that we are a mix of a lot of stuff. Most of it we have no idea what it is. So, are Latin Hispanic folks even brown? Well, it depends who you ask. As I learned this weekend, I thought I knew, but it turns out not everyone sees it that way. Speaking of, while I was finishing up research and writing for this video, I was harassed on a different video and on my Twitter account, all over the disagreement if Hispanic Latin folks are white or of color. I had to private that video and my Twitter just to make the harassment stop. This is the last video I'll ever make talking about color and Latin Hispanic folks, since we can't agree, and a lot of people of color now hate me because they misunderstood that video I had to privatize that I know they didn't even watch. I'd rather not deal with the debate that seems pointless to have. I thought folks of color were on the same side of being against hate and racism, but I guess not. Anyway, this ended very differently than I had originally planned. If I have to private this video too, I am so sorry for being an insensitive jerk. What are your thoughts on this whole idea of brownness? Let me know. I'm going back to my happy place of Legends of Tomorrow and Lucifer. Tell me your guys' happy place. Salud, mi familia.